that had to have been a reaction to like kind of like a fuck you kind of to the.
It was, punk was working class, I thought.
Yeah,
it
right.
felt that way.
To the upper class, right? Yeah, that's.
It was also a pretty druggy scene.
I was gonna ask about that actually, the drugs.
It was definitely a druggy scene.
But it was a different. But they were different drugs, right, from the drugs that had come before, or no? Or was it about the same?
There was a lot of heroin.
Heroin.
A tremendous amount of heroin. I mean, I knew about that part of it a bit later on, rather than I wasn't hanging out with that part of it, that crowd, the punk crowd, in the 70s. But by 81, me and my friends actually had the ambition to form a punk band as well. So in 81, at this point, hardcore was happening, which was like a dangerous offshoot of punk, is how I look at it.
Right.
And it was guys with shaved heads, all wearing work boots, and half of them on heroin,
right,
and the other half just fucking bullies.
Right.
They just everybody would just beat the crap out of each other, and it was just part of the scene on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. There was a club called A7, and I started playing there because I went to a bachelor party, and one of the strippers came up and asked me to buy her a ginger ale, and it was like $15. And I made a joke, like, "Oh my God, a $15 ginger ale for a stripper," And it just cracked me up. And it turns out that it came out that I was a drummer, she was a singer. Could I join her band? So I went in. I met her boyfriend. His name was Hershey. He lived on 7th Street and Avenue B or something. And there was a guitar player who was from Jamaican. And he was totally strung out. He was half of the time when we rehearsed, he was asleep. He was like really not even consciously awake while we rehearsed. But they asked me. My point is, they asked me to play. They called themselves Janis Joplin and the Midgets.
Yes.
She was Asian, and
oh my God,
it was unbelievable. And here I am, this white guy from the suburb with a Jamaican and an Asian and the black keyboard player, and we went into our first show at CBGB. And they had a bunch of songs. Like they were doing like obscure Stones covers, Roxy Music covers that we had rehearsed. And I'd drive into the city on 8th Avenue to the rehearsal studios, and we'd rehearse this set. And most of it was just sleepy ass rock and roll because the guitar player just really was never awake. I mean, I'm not kidding. He was always strung out. So we get on stage, and I asked some of my friends to come down. And it was typical for the time. I think we started playing at around 1 a.m. And A7 was set up that there was a bar area and the back area where you would play in the back area. And by the middle of the second song, we were losing the crowd. Everybody was walking away. You could just tell. I mean, there's only so many times you're gonna want to hear somebody go, "Dance away a heartache, dance away tear." It was that ridiculous. So I just became like, out of embarrassment more than anything else, I just lashed into this, we just made it up, decided to play this ridiculously hard funk beat. And everybody realized that we were desperate, so Hershey jumped on it and started bashing out the Sly Stone sort of riff on it. The guitar player even started kind of like doing like, something was happening.
Oh, he came too?
He came too. We woke him up. And Janis starts to strip as we're playing.
Of course.
So of course now the room gets filled. I mean, it's people on top of people on top of people, and she's sitting there screaming, like doing like almost like it was very much like Yoko Ono
yeah,
sort of thing happening. Only she's at this point topless while we're playing, and it was a jaw-dropping moment. My friends just couldn't believe what they saw, and that kind of started this thing about we should put a band together and go back there and play. We'll our own version of suburban punk. It was really meant to be ironic.
Yeah.
The band was called the Headlickers, and it was mostly songs. I live in the suburbs, all the trees grow. Live in the suburbs, it's for me. Yeah. Oh, one song was L.A. sucks. And you'd list all the reasons why LA sucks, and my favorite one was, it's too far out west. These were the lyrics. And at first I wasn't even the drummer. I was just sort of like a producer guy. I would, because I kept playing, I found myself stuck in a Steely Dan sort of band with guys that I didn't know, because I joined it before the punk thing. Yeah. So now my friends are forming a punk band, and I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated. So I would just produce them whenever they would record, and then go to their shows. And it ended up to the point where I'd play drums a lot on some of the shows later on. But if you went to A7 around that time, I've definitely felt like one of the things I needed to do to stay alive was to like literally rise above, and that was like a hardcore anthem. I think it was Black Flag who did a song called "Rise Above, Rise Above," and you had to, because if you didn't, you'd be in the pit, and if you were in the pit, it'd be very easy to get an arm broken, or you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hurt. I swear to God, this did happen while we were playing. I asked some friends to come in to see us, and they were not aware of the scene. One of them was actually a music executive right now. His name was Bob Bortnick. He calls himself something different at the time. But he came in, and it was a normal scene, just a bunch of guys with shaved heads, all wearing their Doc Martens. And the band starts, an instant eruption of motion. He ran into a corner and literally hit on the floor like this while the music was happening. And Steve, the guitar player, had a flying V that he was playing. One of the guys in the audience just ran up and slammed, basically headbutted him right, broke the guitar in half on stage. Just folded it in half. I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was one of the most incredible, that was a punk moment if I've ever seen one in my life.
That would be a green light to beat him to death with the remains of
the guitar. Yeah, right. Yeah. I think, Steve was so into the scene that I think that he almost had, like, I think it was awe, a little bit of pride that it happened, maybe even. It's hard to say. I would have expected resentment, but that didn't happen. And we were just laughing. We just laughed, because we were these these guys, my friends were guys from Garden City.
Right.
They're all from rich families. They played golf on Saturday afternoon, and now on Saturday night they're in this club with a bunch of guys that are, basically super younger than us, because the hardcore scene was pretty young.
But I mean, even those hardcore guys were probably, a lot of them could have been from the suburbs originally. I think
true.
A lot of people came down, they came, they got in there, and then they...
Almost definitely true.
Yeah.
And they probably were from working class backgrounds, just like the original punk scene.
Yeah.
It was just the extension of it. It's what it developed into by the 80s.
So what do you think it was about that particular area, like of the Bowery and that, that East Village? Like, what was it about that? I mean, it just seems like those couple of blocks spawned so much.
Poverty?
Okay.
I mean, maybe that's a harsh word.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was not going to happen on the Upper East Side.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if it did, it would have been guys doing Buddy Holly covers and, dancing around the stage, which I'm not, knocking it. In fact, I've seen exactly what I'm talking about on the Upper East Side. But, yeah, if you're going to do something like that, you had to get down where it was going to be appreciated.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Buddy Holly covers than Steely Dan covers.
Yeah, me too. Me too, no doubt.
Chris, how do you feel about the Grateful Dead? Come on.
That's a leading question.
If you
I tried. I tried to like them. I really did.
I am way.
I did.
Yeah, I'm way more open-minded than you in that regard, because I tend to.
No, I put in a legitimate effort to really try to like them, but
I would even try to go there in certain elements, but like you said, I don't want to be that guy going like, come on. No way. I got bigger fish to fry. It doesn't matter to me what you don't like. What matters to me is what you do.
It doesn't matter to me what I don't like. It's like I don't need to, try to enforce those opinions on others, but since you asked, if you ask me, I'll probably tell you. They kind of represent, they're like the antithesis of everything I like about rock and roll music. You know, it's what I was talking about before. It's, you know, the way that they would approach their live shows, the aimless, meandering jams that go on forever and often, to my ears, go nowhere. You know, I don't really like music where, so when someone who loves it, they're talking about it, they add this disclaimer of, they're really great if you're on, fill in whatever
Right.
substance.
Yeah.
I don't like,
If you're
I don't really have any
listening.
use for bands that fall into the description of, you know, if you catch them on a really good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. No, you're
you
right.
know, what
You're
are
right.
we waiting for the wind to blow just right? You know?
You're making excuses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that with blues performers too. You know.
By the same token, though,
But, well, when he's on, he's.
see,
you know.
I'm a hippie. So, I grew up a hippie, so I appreciate all of that to some extent because I was in that frame of mind at the time. I loved like the politics of, you know, I loved hippie politics.
Yeah, right.
I love the idea of basically representing youth culture and leftist politics, really socialism even. It made sense.
Which I'm on board with as well. But when it crosses into extreme self-indulgence, which I think all those rock stars of that era definitely drifted into, I mean, you know, they're getting piles of money dumped on them. So, you know, so
Maybe that's why we love the Clash, because they held on to the politics, but they brought down a sense of vitality back to the music. So it held on to the hippie ideal.
I was gonna say it sounds.
and they completely dissolved when they, you know, hit pay dirt, so to speak. It was like, you know, now everybody's dumping wheelbarrows of money on the Clash, and
And it's
you know,
over.
they
I felt bad
fizzled
for
out.
Joe when I think Joe died regretting with a lot of regret.
I agree.
I believe that
Yeah, no doubt.
I met him. It's the most embarrassing story of my life. It really is.
Oh, excellent.
It's up there. And I'm not trying to run this ginger stuff, but I mean, Peppermint Lounge in New York City was set up so that there was a bar area where you'd walk in. It was like a U-turn to get to the bar. It was almost like hard to get to. And then there's a door to get into the main room where the bands would play. That was like 80% of the club was the main room. And I was there with my first wife when I was married very, very young. And we were already knowing that we were going to be separated, but we were still friends and hanging out. And I think we were there to see the Cramps. I saw way more shows at Peppermint Lounge than I did at CBGB because it was easy to get in to the pad. It was bigger. And this one night, I'm just trying to find my wife, and I walk around. I come around the corner. I come up to the edge of the bar, I'm right by the street side of the bar, actually. And there's my wife talking to Joe Strummer. They're hanging out, and they're talking. So I sidle up, I sit down, and I order beer, and I said something to my wife, like, hello, maybe, or you know, something very innocuous. And Joe looks at me and goes, hey, fuck off. And I'm like, I slinked away. Very embarrassing. I just,
From your own wife.
whatever. All right. I was like, maybe this will be a story later. I have to let this unfold. I didn't want to. I didn't say that it was going to turn out well for me one way or the other. So I just like took my beer and slinked away.
She didn't
Very
say.
embarrassing. Very embarrassing in that respect.
She didn't say like, "Oh, that's my husband. I know him."
Not that I recall. No. No.
She was like, "Yeah."
I think she might have been either starstruck. I mean, I know I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that point in time, the Clash were my favorite band.
Yeah.
And here's Joe picking up on my wife at the time. I just found it embarrassing and flattering at the same time.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to act. I had no idea how to act. So I didn't.
That's hilarious.
I just vanished.
Oh my God.
Not
So
proud
wait,
of
so
that,
if you went to the Peppermint Lounge, but you don't remember, did you see the Vipers when you were there? Do you remember seeing them?
You know,
Apparently they played every Saturday night, isn't that right?
there's almost no doubt that I wouldn't have. I mean, I
Yeah,
have
you
to listen. So much of it's a total blur, and it was because, like
Is
I
that
said,
because of drugs?
although there was a huge amount of drug scene, I was the drinker, still am. That's that never changed about me. But I more or less, I think I maintained my ability to drink because I didn't really get too heavily involved in the drug scene at all. Cocaine, very, very little. Heroin, never. Just wasn't. I was afraid. I saw what was happening, and I didn't like the effect that was having on everybody. But alcohol, so long as I was, I mean, I would drive into the city with a bottle of Wild Turkey under my seat. And this is the other thing. I'm not proud of that. Again, there's so much. But, I'm 20, 21, 22, around that age. But I remember the show started so late. So we'd be home. Everybody would gather in my apartment. I lived in Franklin Square, which was fairly close to the city. We could get in and out. We'll get in about 35, 40 minutes from where I lived. Mm-hmm. So we'd hang out at my house, and we'd be drinking, having cocktails, whatever else. And we'd leave at around midnight to get into the city because you weren't going to miss anything. The show started then. By the time show me anybody that's putting on a show that starts at 1 a.m. with any sense of regularity now. That's a huge difference in the culture that happened between then and now. That's like now. I mean, if a show, if they don't start by 8:30 and let you start driving home by 10, you don't want to go because you got to tuck the kids in or pay the babysitter or at this point it's even worse. I mean, we're older. We are now grandparents. Right. Yet we're still the generation that's going to see live music. Our kids don't.
But at the same time, we want to go the fuck home too.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
so now we're like,
you starting when? I'll catch you next time.
The last time I did that was in New Orleans. New Orleans still does it. They'll have late night shows, and if I'm in the mood, it's really cool. You can go see a show, and then if you have the energy, go to the late show somewhere else. But
and then you have breakfast.
Yeah, right.
Like at a diner or something.
Or sleep it off and wake up the next day because you're going to start again anyway.
Do it all over.
One of the two.
Right. That whole I think that whole energy of that sort of just gritty, wake up. Well, if you're a girl, probably a boy too. Wipe the makeup off your face, like spray some perfume and go back out and do it again. And like that kind of that doesn't seem to be something that younger people, like the millennials. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people. Even if I just say like the Bowery, what do you know about the Bowery? They're like, isn't it a hotel? Like they don't even really understand.
Well, this